tour. Honorable Chair, honorable members, you will appreciate it was a decade, let me say the final one, and there are many other achievements that I had there, which was that I was the lead counsel in Kenya's first prisoners' rights to vote case that led to the prisoners in this country getting involved in voting during the referendum in 2010 for the first time. Thereafter, I joined the International Civil Service through the United Nations Development Program. In the United Nations Development Program, I was the technical lead and manager for a democratic governance facility, which is actually the biggest European Union investment in the justice sector in sub-Saharan Africa, 4.2 billion towards the support of our justice sector. And just to mention a few, support was building capacity of the Department of Justice, especially towards setting up the National Legal Aid Service after the passing of the Legal Aid Act in 2016. And secondly, very importantly, was the support to civil societies, including those undertaking work around environmental and climate justice. I also personally drafted the Simplified Legal Aid Act for people to be able to use in this country, and strengthened greatly the capacity of the NGO board. I then moved to my current station, chair, and just to mention, during all this time, I have had participation in both legislative drafting, where I personally drafted the Land Use Planning Bill for Kenya. I drafted the regulations to the Forest Act, but also I was able to attend to very critical forums on an environmental agenda, including very lately COP28 in Dubai, our Africa Climate Summit. I was actively involved, especially on green jobs and transition, and also other fora of discussion through the Law Society of Kenya. Currently, at the International Labour Organization, I am the project director for what we call an All Hands in Kenya project, which is really towards enhancing the capacity of our Ministry of Labour towards compliance with international labor standards and acceptable conditions of work. Honorable Chair, honorable members, great achievements we have made thus far until today, including at the international, getting the Ministry of Labor to supporting them to be able to have a roadmap towards ensuring ratification of the International Labour Conventions of Kenya. And just one other key to mention would be really training capacity to the Employment and Labour Relations Court judges, which just happened very early this year, and many other inspectors within the Ministry of Labour. Honorable Chair, honorable members, I am a high achiever. In the last cumulatively 5 years, I have exceeded expectation in all my performance evaluation in my work areas. As my vast career demonstrates my knowledge and skills, I believe that I have the necessary technical and skill set and expertise needed to truly stand out as Kenya's next permanent representative to the United Nations Environment Program. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to first note that the nominee is quite highly achieved in her field, as she has tried to summarize, but I think from her CV it's even more detailed. So I'll ask very direct questions. Number one, you have been in the human rights, I would say, background in many areas, including Kituo cha Sheria, even in UNDP, and other areas where you have worked. In the vision of our SDGs of whole society approach, how do you think we can involve to have everyone on board matters environment? That is the government, that is the civil society, that is the academia, the research, all of it. How do you think we can be able to get this synergy to ensure that we do our best. And why I ask this is because we are very proud to have held the first African climate change summit in Kenya. But most of these conferences that are high profile end up being just talk, and the deliberations and the decisions are kept in some shelf. So like this one, which one do you think you would start with from the ACS? Because it's very recent. And what are the action points you'd think matters environment would be able to incorporate in our country? And finally, from your questionnaire, so that I give my colleagues a chance to answer, and you have really enumerated so many. I'm curious on this International Labour Organization Staff Union. You're still a member, and if you look at question number 21, which was also posed to you by the chair, what is your deferred income or what you expect in the future? You say none. So is this position elective? Is it paid? Do you expect dividends? Do you expect money from your farming like you have indicated in 23? And why is that not counted as deferred income? Thank you, Chair.
We'll take one more question, then you can respond to them. Honorable Kandia.
Thank you, Chair.
Wants to take a loan immediately on carbon, so please.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable Wangari, for your question. In answering the question on human rights background and SDGs and how we are able to undertake a whole society approach, while coming into this position, I would be very well guided by the established frameworks, and one of them that is very critical is the Kenya foreign policy. And under the foreign policy, we have the environmental diplomacy pillar, which lays down two very critical areas that I would use in answering this question. One is that my role will include promoting research that would lead to innovation, and that would be important in helping to mitigate or actually reduce the effects of climate change and even the challenges on environment that we face as Kenya. And in doing that, one of the very critical points that I note, Honorable Wangari, through the chair, is that we as a country have had all these over 50 years of the presence of UNEP in Kenya, and we have very strong institutions of research. If we remember the for example, the Stockholm Environment Institute, we have ILRI, we have ICRAF, for example, we have ISIPE in this country. How have we used them to be critical thought leaders in helping us to have, proper scientific analysis that inform our policies? So in involving society and academia, these would be institutions that would be of critical importance for us. So in terms of also the foreign policy, the environmental diplomacy pillar, it requires that my office, if I am successful, get involved in promoting national and public dialogue around the matters, environmental challenges that we face as a country and as a region, but also to be able to ensure that there's awareness creation. So how to involve civil society, whole society approach would be to actually be able to hold these policy dialogues, hold public awareness forum, and undertake knowledge creation towards ensuring that everybody regionally, nationally, and internationally understands our priorities as a country when it comes to environment and climate change, but also more importantly, the efforts that we collectively need to put together in dealing with that. The issue about...
Madam Gertrude, let me request that you keep your response
answer short.
Yeah,
Okay,
you know your field, there's no doubt about it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So the question relating to International Labour Organization and staff income, Honorable Wangare, you will excuse me, maybe I did not make good use of my responses there. The deferred income would be like what I responded to, Chair, which would be my investments and what I expect in retirement benefits as the future earnings that I would be expecting. When it comes to the question on climate, sorry. Yes, that would be my answers on that. Honorable Kandia, thank you very much.
The ILO union, is it an elective position? Do you relinquish it, or is it paid? Is it remuneratable?
It is remuneratable, Honorable Wangare, and I provided the salary, my salary within the form, but I serve, that's extra service by staff of the ILO who elected me to serve them on the staff union. Thank you.
So will you relinquish?
Definitely.
Okay.
Thank
For the
you.
record, it's important.
Yes, Honorable Kandia, thank you very much. If approved, and how I will attribute for fair and equitable financing from UNEP, I think of critical important would be to pursue, first of all, to pursue the financial, the accruing financial support towards our climate action and our climate agenda, as well as our environmental priorities as a country, accruing from our negotiations in the multilateral environmental agreements. So that would lead to that, but more importantly, it is that there is an existing adaptation fund, and the adaptation fund is mainly supposed to support developing countries like Kenya, and one of the things would be to pursue, how far we can go or build the capacities of our negotiations, as well as our proposals towards the support to the priority areas that Kenya has put for itself in combating environmental challenges through the adaptation fund, in order for us to be able to meet our nationally determined contributions. The second one would be that in as much as we are all working hard and talking about global climate change, Africa is disproportionately affected by the effects of climate change. And one of the things in terms of being able to contribute or advocate for equitable financing would be to look at how the poverty that affects our people, particularly in Kenya and in Africa, and therefore they are not even able to fairly afford goods and services, how that is impacted by the heavy emitters, and be able to look for ways and available funds, including mitigation funds, that would enable us to be able to ensure that financing through UNEP comes to help us to deal with the priorities we have on environment. About carbon credits, it's an ongoing debate for us as a country. Honorable Kandia, I would say, through the chair, I would say that I think we are pleased that we are at a point that as a country we are in the legislative process. Because previously, as a country, we have had voluntary markets of carbon being what has been entrenched. But going forward, it would be to look at how we can, be compliant. And my office, particularly in my role, would be to support, again, to the strengthening of our capacities in ensuring that, as required of the environmental diplomacy policy, that our laws, which we are passing even on carbon credit, are in line with the international standards, the international norms, and the international laws. And more importantly, Honorable Chair, allow me to say that we are guided by the United Nations frameworks, like the one on climate change and the Paris Agreement, particularly Article 6, and this is what should be able to guide our country as we finalize. I know that the bill is of age, and the regulatory processes are still ongoing, and of course my office would really support by bringing UNEP's capacity to ensure that our laws are compliant with international standards. Thank you.
Honorable Yusuf and then Honorable Kwenya. Take the
Yeah, and looking at it, I think it's one of those that are so well done, given what, without disclosing what we've been, perusing before. And therefore, my compliments to you, Madam Agote, for a job well done. This particular one, Chair, and I want to draw attention of our members to the issue of conflict of interest. I read and I thought maybe even Parliament going forward, we could borrow a leave as to how we can develop a policy on issue of conflict of interest. Chair, I have a question, given I have no doubt in terms of the candidate or the nominee's ability, even from the narrative that she's given. Because most likely, you're going to be nominated or appointed to be our rep in UNEP. I have interest in a project that the government is trying to implement in my constituency, and there seems to be a serious conflict between environmentalists and the government and the people. My people, because one mission of the UN is to make sure that the lives of the people who are living are improving, and we do not compromise the generations to come in terms of the way we deal with the environment. Now, there is a conflict of one road called Mau Mau Road. I would want you to take interest in that matter because it's alive today, whereby lobby groups that are foreign are opposed to the construction of that road. Yet there are so many other roads that go through forests. You've talked of wetlands and all, and they're trying to bring up issues to the effect that that road cannot be constructed because it passes through a wetland. Yet, there's an existing road as we talk, only that it's not built to bitumen standard. I would want to hear, as our rep, how you'd come in, what would be your input so that then the lives of the living are taken care of, even as we look forward to generations to come, because that's the mission of the UNEP.
briefly respond, continue and respond.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable Yusuf. Indeed, there's a question of funding and financing of UNEP, and really not being able to meet its potential. And as a country, we are privileged to be the capital that hosts this headquarters of UNEP. How I would lobby for more resources, I would, through the Office of the Permanent Representative, be anchored, under the Rio 20 declaration about the future we want, which was very keen on helping and working around consolidating. It was especially paragraph 88 of the Future We Want document, consolidating the United Nations Environment Programme as a headquarter in Kenya. And Honorable Yusuf, through the chair, I think you're very right about the need, because one of the considerations under that paragraph is actually to get more contributions from the regular budget to the United Nations Environment Programme, as well as from voluntary contributions. And this would be an area that hopefully, if I am approved and I serve in that office, working alongside with yourselves, honorable members, it's an area that we should be able to champion and maybe to rally our neighbors, the region and even the globe, working, of course, within the established frameworks to be able to increase those contributions to the United Nations Environment Programme. More importantly also is that there is need to elevate the status of the United Nations Environment Program within the United Nations system itself. And the coordination role of the mandate on environment and climate change should really be consolidated and be left towards the coordination of UNEP. And this is something that I will be working around with colleagues within the established frameworks again to be able to champion, and of course, more importantly, to purpose to fully implement and work around the strengthening the implementation of the paragraph 88 of the Future We Want document. The second question on the underrepresentation of Kenyans at the senior management of the UNEP, Honorable Yusuf, I would be taking stock of that, as it would be actually through this office important to champion Kenyans to get into those critical positions around decision making on the support towards environment as well as our climate action agenda. But more importantly, is that there have been conversations, and His Excellency the President, Dr. William Ruto, has been leading the discussion, and I think we are almost in agreement to have a Kenya country program at the United Nations Environment Program. Historically, we are hosting the UNEP, but it is a globe here. So how do we get coherent programs and projects that are implemented in Kenya and sustainably for Kenya? And that would mean that we have a country program which would definitely be able to guarantee some sort of employment for our people within the office, and of course to contribute strongly to the nexus to our environmental priorities as a country. The question from Honorable Kwenya, I stand guided, but I would be seeking counsel and, of course, seeking guidance from the capital on how far my office would engage with this. But just to comment, I think one of the priorities that we have as a country now under our strategic plan of the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change is really to conserve and to protect our wetlands. Because they are almost disintegrating. So there's, of course, the conflicting demands and interests in those who require the road, and we all know we require the infrastructure for the economic development of our country, but we also have to think about the environment and the threats and the challenges which are just enormous right now on the environment and the need to protect them, which would mean that for purposes of my role would be to look at much more environmental conservation, promotion, and protection. Thank you.
Chair.
Back to you, Honorable Chair.
Yes. She's a good diplomat.
Any other are almost to the affirmative without saying. But we've had nominations.
Chair, we are set.
So that marks the end of our fourth day of vetting process. We have had to adjourn our sittings tomorrow because, of course, of the Eid holiday. We will again resume on Thursday, the 11th, from 8 a.m. in the morning. It's been an extremely good process, gone on very smoothly, save for one case where a candidate did not show up, declined for his own personal reasons, which is constitutional and is accepted. And we as a committee have been seized of the matter. And accordingly, we have addressed it to the relevant House. Rather, we've addressed it to the Speaker and the Clerk of the National Assembly, and they are fully aware. So our process has been very smooth. We will continue again on Thursday.
Yeah,
Unless there are questions.
We have one or two questions.
There are nominees who came in casually, and you remember, if you heard my statement, I say without being prejudicial to the other nominees, it is that all the nominees that appear before this committee must take their duty very seriously. The appointing authority has given them a huge responsibility to represent our country in their various stations that are being posted to. Showing incompetence, or even without necessarily, some of them are, of course, most of them are competent, but some showed a very unclear knowledge of the stations that are supposed to be posted. That don't mean that they did not qualify. All I'm saying is that our nominee represented to the UNEP did her homework extremely well. She did her assignment very well, and she respected the position that she'd been nominated for and impressed this committee. However, it's a decision of this committee on whether to approve her or not. But that is to say that, of course, we also receive some nominees who have shown sketchy or almost, I'll allow the Mamwesi to, I do not want to sound prejudicial. Let me allow the Mamwesi to make a comment.
As a committee is a very important exercise. And we call upon those who've been given this responsibility to come prepared. It's an important responsibility because the role that these nominees are going to play for this country is very important. It is important in terms of trade. It is important in terms of helping the unemployment situation in this country. It is important in many fronts. So we want to give Kenyans really the best. That's all we want to say. Thank you.
I mean, based on what they are representing, do we have capable marketeers?
Ambassadors are the face of the country. Ambassadors are the face of the president. They are the ones that are profiling our image as a country outside. If you appear before a committee and show incompetence, of course, even the president will not tolerate incompetence. People should take the assignment seriously. If you cannot convince 10 or 15 members of this committee, how will you convince investors? How will you convince people who want to invest in this country? That's what I'm saying. You must show, you must demonstrate that you're capable on your duty. We are not on a rubber stamping mission. We want to send diplomats. We want to send economic diplomats. We want to send tourism diplomats. We want to make our country a huge country. We want to have a new breed of diplomats. We want to assist the president in delivering in his mandate, in making sure that this country becomes a destination of foreign direct investment. That can only happen if you are representatives who understand their mandate and who are ready to go and profile this country as much.
Chair, one question. We've seen...
Still ongoing with the vetting process. It will be very early in the day to start discussing the nominees, their capabilities, and if they're incapable. Besides, it's not a decision that I can make as a chairman. It's a collective decision of the committee. What I will tell you is that all those who have shown incompetence, for sure, will not go to their stations.